Today, I'm going to teach you how to play better golf in the cold. Ow! Got my mittens here to keep my hands warm, and this is how to play better golf in the winter. So I made this video for just a few reasons, because I know when I was starting out in golf and I wanted to get better and I was practicing every single day, winter was not going to stop me. Now, there's kind of two forms of playing golf during the winter. One would be, how do you practice off of the course? When you're in your basement, you know, putting on a little putting green or a little putting mat, into a chipping net, or even going to a heated range. Now, the other side of things is actually getting out to the course and playing during the winter. Now, I will say there's not many courses that are going to be open like this during the winter. Usually they're public courses, but nevertheless, there's always that one or maybe two courses that will stay open for most of the winter, barring no snow on the ground. So if you're one of those golfers who is still getting out to play on the course, this video is for you. I know I had to play plenty of high school golf rounds in this exact weather, and I also was just crazy enough to come out here on my own will. Now, I've got a few tips for you today, and we're going to start with the most important thing, and that is how you are dressed during the winter when you're playing golf. Now, it seems easy, just put on a bunch of layers, but it's actually not so easy, and there are a few tricks that I've figured out playing golf for years and years in the cold to better strike that golf ball with all of these layers on. So we'll start with what I've got right now. I've actually got everything on, from my rain suit, you know, rain jacket, rain pants. I've got these gloves. I'd actually would recommend probably not gloves. If you have them, get some mittens, because they go over your, you know, glove hand a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to get them on. But nevertheless, I did not have them at the moment, so we brought out the next best option, which is just some thick gloves. Now, obviously, we're not going to hit golf balls with these. These are for walking between shots. So when you get to the golf ball, take these off, you don't need them. You'll just have your normal setup. Now, I will say I'm not a huge fan of the winter gloves that you'll put on your hands, because I think it makes the grip a little bit harder. My preferred way of doing it is with those gloves, have those on for 95% of the time, and then for the few seconds that you're using to actually hit your shots, that's when you take those off and just hit normally. So that's the hands, and by far the most important thing when you're playing golf in the winter is to keep those hands warm. You can also throw some hand warmers. I actually put them in my mittens if I have mittens, and just shake those up all day, and you'll have nice and toasty hands. Now, moving on, obviously we got the hat, that's a must. But you might be wondering, why do I have this rain suit on? And the reason being is it just provides another layer for us to use. Because if you put on 2 or 3 sweatshirts, it's going to get a little bit bulky, and when you try to swing back, you're going to be very constricted. So in the most extreme conditions, for example today when it's, you know, 32 to 34 degrees, you're gonna want all of these layers. So let me just walk you through all the layers that I've got on right now. So we've got the rain jacket, we've got the pullover, got Under Armour right here, and well, I guess that's the lowest layer, but then a golf shirt. So in total we have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers on our body. And it's actually not that hard to rotate and swing with this setup. And that is because we've got a very specific way that we layer up in golf when we're playing in the winter. Now, obviously, Under Armour is a must. That's that thin layer, the skin layer. Then you have a golf shirt that just honestly just acts as another loose layer. Then let me just take this rain jacket off for a second and show you what I got on. So this is just a pullover, and what you're gonna want with the pullover is have these sleeves so that they're not coming over your hands. Now, I know a lot of people like to wear, you know, longer clothing, bulkier clothing that kind of covers the hands like this, but in golf, you want something that there's actually a little bit of room here so that when you're gripping the club, it's not getting caught in your grip. So that's really important when you are picking a pullover. And so that's kind of why I'm wearing this. It's very light and it's very warm at the same time. So really useful for playing winter golf. On the lower half, I've got just some regular long golf pants, but something you also see is I have some leggings underneath. In addition, you can grab some rain pants just like this. They're just really baggy. They go over any sort of clothing, and they're great for playing golf in the cold because, to be honest, when you're rotating back and swinging a golf club, you know, what you have on your legs is not going to hold you up that much. So I pretty much always keep on rain pants over my leggings and long golf pants to stay as warm as possible. Usually does the trick, usually does a great job. One thing I'll mention, since you saw me hitting with all of that stuff on at the beginning of this video, is that when I go to hit a shot, especially in competition, I usually take that rain jacket off, just like I'm taking those gloves off to hit. I'll take that rain jacket off and I'll just have this stuff on, which frees me up to make a bigger turn, which leads me into my next tip for playing golf in the winter, and that is know how your clothing that you're wearing affects your swing. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you are swinging in the cold, when you have all these layers on, your muscles are a little bit tight. By the way, you should definitely be warming up extra before the round, but I think everyone knows that already. But when you're trying to swing with all of this clothing, you have the tendency to get up here and you can't turn as much. Normally, if I really stretch it out, I can get myself a full 90-degree shoulder turn. But with all this clothing on, my muscles are a little bit constricted because of the cold. I can't quite get so much of a turn. So what this is going to do is cause you to become very short and quick with your golf swing. When I'm playing golf in the cold, almost exclusively my swing thought when I get up to the ball is not going to be anything that I normally do. It's simply going to be keep a good tempo and sequence my golf swing correctly. So when I say that, I'm basically trying to say when I take the club back, I want to make sure that I'm loading all the way before I start my downswing to kind of combat that tendency to get short and quick when we have all this constriction in the muscles and clothing on our body. So that's just one thing. I'm always thinking about tempo when I play golf in the winter. And I also know my limitations that I'm probably not going to get as far of a backswing. So I just plan for that in terms of distance. So I may even take a little bit of distance off of my shot. Now that is a perfect segue into the next point that I want to make about playing golf in the winter, and that is what happens to your golf ball. So in the winter, the golf ball is obviously cold, your clubs are obviously cold, and that has an effect on your ball flight. A great rule of thumb to use in the winter when calculating your ball flight effects is going to be the 70-degree Fahrenheit rule. Now, what this basically tells you is that every 3 degrees you go down from 70 degrees Fahrenheit, or up for that matter, I guess in the summer, you're going to lose or gain 1 yard of distance. So if I can do some quick math here, if we went down from 70 degrees to 40 degrees, pretty close to what we're in right here, it's a little bit colder, I'm going to calculate that I'm going to lose about 10 yards of distance in this weather. Now there's something that you have to add on top of this, and that is the factor of whether you're storing your golf balls in your car or you're storing them at home in the warmth. So if you were to come out to the golf course and you had just come from home, your clubs had been at home and your golf balls had been at home in the warm, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very normal distance on the first couple of holes, and then as you get into the round, you're going to start to notice that ball flight effect calculator that I was basically just talking about. You don't have to get complicated with this, just be mindful that that's what's happening to your golf ball. Keep it in mind. Generally what I'll do is just a rough estimate. I'll get to the beginning of the day, we'll say, oh, it's 40 degrees out, I'm gonna play every shot about 10 yards extra, and then we'll say maybe add another 5 yards because my swing is gonna be a fraction shorter than normal due to the clothes that I'm wearing and the constriction of the muscles because it's cold. So in all, I'm just gonna be playing all day about 15 extra yards on all of my approach shots. Now let's talk about approach shots here for a second, because that is another big consideration that you have to make when you're playing in the cold. So when you come out to the course, there's a frost delay like we had here today at this course. You're going to probably experience that in the beginning of the round when you're just coming off of that frost, or even if it's been cold for several days in a row, you're going to notice that the greens are actually a little bit harder. And in some cases, if you are crazy enough, like I was in the past, to come out here and play when it is 28 degrees, you're going to notice that the ball is going to react almost like a links course, and it's just going to bounce off of those greens like a trampoline. So if you find yourself in that situation, don't fight it, just play a little bit short of every green and you should be good. Now we've moved up here to the green because this is the next part of your game that's going to suffer in the cold. And that is because the short game is all about touch and feel. And when you have cold hands, which is why it's so important to have those mittens, those hand warmers to keep your hands warm, if you don't have feel in your hands, you're going to be knocking these chip shots way past the pin or way short. You're just not going to have that natural feel that you normally do.
One of the most difficult rounds of golf I've ever had to play. Because you could not feel your hands, you cannot feel your body. And you couldn't barely stand up as it was.
So this means a couple of things for us. Number one, you're just not going to be able to hit certain shots. If you come here and you're trying to hit these big flop shots, you know, trying to stick it close, that one was actually really good, but normally you're not going to have that sort of feel to be able to hit those big swings that require lots of wrist hinge and all that kind of stuff. So what I try to do in this situation is come in here and stay as big muscle as possible, which means when I'm hitting chip shots, I'm not going to try to get too much wrist hinge in those chip shots. Now, that is a whole nother topic to talk about. I think you should probably check out my blog that talks a little bit more about what is the proper chipping and pitching motion. But whatever the case, we're going to have more of what I call on my site a one-piece takeaway, where we just keep this triangle all together and use the big muscles to hit the golf ball. So that kind of looks like this, where we're just using the big muscles to turn and hit those shots. So that's going to be a lot more reliable for you, and it's going to get the ball down on the ground a lot faster, more consistent results. It's something that a lot of players who play, you know, links golf or, you know, golf in the cold where there's lots of rain and wind, they know that you have to keep the ball on the ground, because not only does it keep it out of the wind, but it's more consistent when you have all of these various conditions going on at once. Now this translates to when you got, you know, something like this where you're pretty close to the green. You know, I'd probably normally chip this shot, but in this case, get rid of the wedge. Throw it to the side and use your putter, because it's much more reliable in this situation. We know that we're going to be using our big muscles. We're going to have a much better chance of getting that ball close. Got 3 feet, makeable putt. I avoided any of those, bad shots that I could hit if my hands were cold and I was trying to use a 60-degree wedge, might blade it across the green, not because I have terrible form, but because it's so cold and I have no feel in my hands. So that's just one thing to watch out for when you're playing around the greens in the cold. Play the shot that you are super confident in, that uses the big muscles, like the putter, and will give you the most reliable results. Now, another thing that happens a lot in the winter for a lot of golf courses is they will aerate their greens. So you're going to be putting on aerated greens, which means your short putts like this are going to be rather terrifying. Now, the one thing that I try to do when I find myself, on aerated greens is line up my golf ball. So sometimes I'll actually not line up my golf ball at all. I'll just put the Titleist logo facing up, and then I'll use my instinct, the fact that I've practiced lining my putts up so much, to actually know that I'm lined up to the hole. Now, in the cold, when the greens are aerated, it's a good idea to line those putts up with the little line on your golf ball. By lining up your putts, you're going to eliminate all that doubt that creeps into your mind when the greens are aerated, where you're saying, hey, is it my alignment that's off? Is that why I'm missing putts? Or is it simply the greens not rolling true? So if you're lining up your putts with that line on the golf ball, you're going to eliminate all of that doubt. Well, that is pretty much it for today. I got my gloves back on because my hands have turned purple at this point. If you liked this video, be sure to give it that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you want a free personalized practice plan based on your skill level and other attributes, such as whether you've seen your swing on video or not, whether you keep your stats or not, all of that good stuff, go check out the description below. There's a link to a little short quiz that I've put together, and you can get that for free on my site.